to feed. The impact of unsustainable livestock production. The world is facing today all kinds of crises, including social and sanitary crises, climate crisis, and food crisis. All of them have a common source, which is the capitalist system, a system of oppression. Nowadays, about 838 million people are suffering from hunger. The capitalist system of agro-food production failed to meet its fundamental objective of right to food security. It rather produces economic, social, and environmental injustices. The system led to human rights violations and gender injustices, to pollution of water bodies, soil, and air through the emission of the greenhouse gases. The pastoralist communities who are vital for food sovereignty continue to be pushed out and dominated by the factory farming. The factory farming is a driver of forest and biodiversity loss. It is one of the causes of climate change. Reports revealed that the livestock chain is responsible for up to 19.4% of total greenhouse gas emissions. These need to be drastically reduced in fighting climate crisis and thus fighting the system of oppression that deepens social, economic, and environmental injustices. In Africa, what we do know about the factory farming is unknown, actually. So what exactly do we know? Is the continent developing the sustainable livestock production? What are the development bank's implications? And what are the challenges and alternatives towards the sustainable unsustainable livestock in Africa? Those are my questions. But if you also have these questions in mind, you are in the right place today. So this webinar will uncover the impacts of unsustainable livestock production in Africa, with emphasis on the extensive cattle ranching to factory farming. So we all realize that Africa is becoming a market of meat. So we have 4 speakers, Maimoune Ubrejo, Mr. Maimoune Ubrejo, Dr. Haden Mohammed, Mrs. Claire Kenom, and Mrs. Andrea Echeverry and Mrs. Kezia, who will be talking to address those questions that are raised and to make justice to the topic that we are discussing today. Those are the speakers we're going to hear. So the floor will be given to them one by one. So the idea here is to listen to the speakers first, and we will be opening the floor for the questions and comments after hearing the speakers. Without further ado, I would like to invite Comrade Maimoune Ubrejo for his presentation. Mr. Ubrejo is a climate justice advocate whose work cut across Nigeria and the African region. He has been working with Friends of the Earth Nigeria Environmental Rights Action for over a decade, and he is the coordinator of the Climate Justice and Energy Program for Friends of the Earth Africa. He's also many hats for Comrade Ubrejo. So, comrades, you have the floor for your presentation. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much, my own elder brother Kwame. Thanks for all the groups that put all this together. This webinar to me is really an eye-opener because this is a topic that many people have not actually been looking at, but it is really very significant to me because I rather connect it to livestock production and the basic linkages with the climate crisis is also creating as well, and also how climate crisis is also affecting the issue of livestock management in West Africa. I will be coming from the Nigeria perspective. I've seen on the flyer, and what part of the questions that I was asked to also look at was also to look at how development banks are contributing to the problem of livestock production in Africa. Nigeria has a very peculiar example of livestock production. Growing up, I know as a child, one of the unique things that everybody want to see that is we want to own a livestock. So locally, at the rural area, almost every family have one livestock or the other that they breed. Some breed it for economic reason. Some breed it as a part of their life to ensure that they support a kind of the family farming system. The most common livestock products are the fowls. You know, every family own a fowl, and it's a way of people exchanging love in those days because you could be gifted a hen and you take it to your own side to breed, and at the end of 2-3 years, you can call the owner that this is the product produced from the hen you were given. So you can be given one hen, and within a period of 4 years, you have multiplied that into up to maybe 10 different or maybe 20, and then you share the proceed with the owner of the initial hen. So that in itself, it brings love and that kind of unity of collaboration between families. Another common livestock is goats. Unlike fowls, almost every family have fowls and chickens and they breed. But goats, few families have goats that they take care of locally. So I am trying to establish this to paint the picture that the livestock production in Nigeria is not in the hands of corporate entities. I just want to establish that unless if there are new development in that regard. But the one that has created tension and problem for us is that of cattle. You know, and cattle is they are breeded in the northern part of Nigeria. And one of the things that we see that have actually created the issue has been the issue of climate crisis, because in the northern part of Nigeria, we have seen a situation where by most communities where cattle are bred are having issues of desertification. They're having experience of drought. So they struggle, even humans that live in those parts of the country, they struggle to get water to drink and also struggle for vegetation. So that in itself, it shows that it cannot support clearly the breeding of livestock. So that pastoralist system of farming has been introduced in Nigeria for a very long period of time. And in the northern part of Nigeria, most of our politicians own some of these cattle, and they employ the herders who take care of these cattle. And these cattle, because of the climate of the northern part of Nigeria, they tend to migrate from the north. They move down to the south, where they are able to have access to green vegetation to feed their cattle. And that in itself has created farmer herder crisis for a very long time, because some of these herders are not trained, they are not enlightened, they don't understand the local language of the places they visit, they tend to also use their cattle to destroy the local agricultural system that exists in the South. So which now creates another tension of conflict between the herders from the northern part of Nigeria and that of the southern part of Nigeria. And there have been cases where communities whose farms have been ravaged by cattle because they lack the ability to identify what is a farm in the south, because there's a difference between crops that are produced in the south and that is produced in the north. So because most of them breed at night, and farmers will wake up in the morning and they see that their farms have been ravaged by cattle, and that in itself will create a crisis. So most communities go after the herders and also go after the cattle. So in itself, as a way of sustaining the business of cattle, most of those big men in the north tend to arm the herders with sophisticated equipment as a way of defense. And today, that is a major sector that has created tension in Nigeria, the issue of farmer herder crisis. So we have started seeing a situation whereby herders kill farmers in the south because they want to protect their businesses. Not is it their businesses, or they do want to protect the business of their masters. So we now have a situation whereby people now kill because of cattle. So it is a situation of killing people for cattle. Now we are looking at starving Africa to feed the world. So now, what is the connection, the nexus in this whole unsustainable cattle breeding in Nigeria? It means that those that own the cattle, they now lack the needed ability to be able to go into sustainable cattle farming, livestock management. So what they do, open grazing is what they embrace. So that open grazing is an unsustainable method because it has sparked conflict in the southern part of Nigeria. It has created more tension in the southern part of Nigeria, and that in itself has made the cattle business a kind of a blood money business. So that in itself is not the best way to go. And for Nigeria government to find a way around this, the various complaints that have come from different sectors around farmer herder crisis, we started hearing about the establishment of cattle ranching across the south. In itself, that cattle ranching that were being discussed today, although it has suffered a major setback, was seen as a political dynamism of colonizing territories in the south. So that has in itself suffered a major setback. But if you look at the establishment of cattle ranching in local communities, that will not actually solve the problem of the killing for cattle. Rather, it's going to also create the issue of border control. It's also going to create the issue, the struggle for resources. So apart from the killing, another aspect that we have also seen is the struggle for resources on the ground. So we see farmers from the herders from the north moving to the south to share the green grass with those in the south. So that means there is a struggle for space, struggle for available land space for people to farm on. So this in itself is another unsustainable way of doing that. Like as it is in the other part of the world where these cattle are kept in a place and they are fed in those places, I think that in itself we have been able to help to reduce the crisis that the cattle rearing, the cattle production process in Nigeria has created. But in itself, we are now looking at those in control. Those in control are big men who spend millions of naira to invest in this business. And how do they get this money? Most of them resort to loans. So they get these loans, and because they have taken the loan to invest in this business, they want to also ensure that their businesses are protected. So they don't mind whatever that is done to protect their businesses, they will do it. That is why the killing for cow has not reduced. So I would say the banks giving out these loans for this cattle business, they have not also done their feasibility study to ensure that the money they put into these businesses do not take human blood. So these are part of the dynamics that we need to look at it from our own local context. Since I was asked to speak for just 10 minutes, I think on this note, I will hang it up here. If there are questions, I'm willing to respond to them. Thank you very much, comrades.
Thank you so much, Comrade Ubrejo, for your presentation. You went straight forward, looking at the specificity of Nigeria, where you have different types of livestock, fowls, goats, and cattle. And cattle has a main problem, conflict, and also the climate impacts on those cattle. And you mentioned also the implication of banks through loans and the profit that the owners of the ranches of the livestock are pursuing. So thank you very much. I think more questions will be through to you soon. Next speaker will be Dr. Handen. Dr. Handen will be speaking next. He is the president of Indigenous People Africa Coordination Committee, or let's say the Indigenous People Africa Coordination Committee, IPAC. And he is also a member of the steering committee of the International Indigenous Language of UNESCO, and he is the director of Amazige's Historic and Environmental Studies Center. Over to you, Dr. Handen, for your presentation. Thank you.
Bonjour, vous m'entendez? Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oui, parfaitement.
Merci beaucoup, mon cher ami Kwame. Merci pour toute l'équipe qui ont préparé ce rendez-vous très, très important, cette réunion très, très importante. C'est la première fois que un sujet sur l'élevage non durable a été pour moi, pour la première fois, de discuter l'élevage non durable. C'est une bonne idée. Donc, voilà. Pour la région de l'Afrique du Nord, il y a un rebondissement extraordinaire concernant l'élevage. Nous avons, avant la colonisation, même après la colonisation, jusqu'à 1950-56, nous avons un élevage traditionnel orchestré par les peuples autochtones. Un élevage durable qui respecte la nature, qui respecte la biodiversité, etc. Et qui garantissent également la nourriture de la population. Ça, c'est très important. Donc, il y a, en quelque sorte, un certain équilibre entre la consommation de la population et le respect de la nature. Mais après, avec la mondialisation, il y a des entreprises. Comme a dit notre ami de Nigeria, il y a des entreprises en collaboration avec les banques multinationales ou internationales qui vont investir sur l'élevage parce que l'élevage maintenant est devenu un commerce extraordinaire à l'échelle mondiale la raison pour laquelle l'Afrique, comme vous avez dit, l'Afrique est une source d'alimentation, une source pour nourrir le monde. Alors, ce rebondissement a des impacts très négatifs au niveau de la nature, au niveau de la biodiversité, mais aussi au niveau de la consommation de la population. Je vous donne l'exemple du Maroc. Donc, nous avons l'élevage traditionnel, nous avons la transhumance, le pastoralisme, les gens se contentent de leurs troupeaux et en faisant l'équilibre, comme j'avais dit, entre la nature et la consommation. Mais avec l'introduction de l'agriculture extensive, donc tout cela a été marginalisé. L'élevage traditionnel a été marginalisé. La population, ils ont quitté leur domaine, ils ont quitté les campagnes. Il y a un exode rural extrême entre 1990 et maintenant, jusqu'à maintenant. Et il y a un vide extraordinaire des campagnes. Et cela peut peut-être se produire dans plusieurs pays africains. Donc, je peux vous donner l'exemple de l'Algérie, je peux vous donner l'exemple de certains pays, par exemple l'Égypte également. Donc, nous avons un exode rural et cet exode rural a des impacts négatifs au niveau de l'élevage durable. Donc, la domination aujourd'hui dans cette région, c'est l'élevage non durable. L'importance maintenant, pour répondre à notre question, quelle alternative devrait être soutenue à la place? Maintenant, avec le changement climatique et ses impacts terribles, non seulement en Afrique, mais partout dans le monde. Et avec la prise de conscience de la communauté internationale de l'importance des peuples autochtones et de l'importance des savoirs traditionnels, il y aura peut-être une alternative si on reconnaît les droits des peuples autochtones, ici on essaye de comprendre le discours, de comprendre la vision, parce que ce n'est pas facile, ce n'est pas évident, de comprendre la vision des peuples autochtones dans le monde. Leur vision entre l'homme, l'être humain et la nature. Il dit les peuples autochtones considèrent la terre comme la terre-mère. Donc, c'est tout à fait le contraire avec le capitalisme farouche, le capitalisme qui règne actuellement. Donc, il essaie de reproduire le maximum au détriment de la nature. Donc, pour l'alternative de l'élevage durable, il faut absolument faire appel au savoir traditionnel des peuples autochtones. Nous avons des expériences extraordinaires des peuples autochtones. Je vous donne l'exemple des Mbororo au Tchad, dans l'Afrique centrale également, qui maîtrisent la technique autochtone de l'élevage durable. Ils maîtrisent également la médecine traditionnelle pour guérir l'élevage, le troupeau, ils ont en quelque sorte une relation intime entre l'homme et le bétail. Si une vache, chez les Borolus, si une vache va accoucher, va faire son petit, les femmes ne dorment pas. Ils réveillent toute la nuit pour aider la vache à l'accouchement. Ça, ça n'existe pas chez les entreprises, le capitalisme, les entreprises ultra-modernes, les entreprises de l'élevage moderne. Ça, c'est très important. Donc, pour moi, il est indispensable de encourager les peuples autochtones de maintenir les savoirs traditionnels. Et maintenant, comme nous avons les cadres législatifs au niveau international, nous avons la Déclaration des Nations Unies sur les droits des peuples autochtones, nous avons le cadre, l'accord de Paris qui insiste sur l'importance des peuples autochtones et des savoirs traditionnels. Nous avons également, et dernièrement, un cadre très, très important, le cadre mondial de la biodiversité. Ça, c'est une opportunité extraordinaire pour faire rebondir la situation, faire en quelque sorte travailler sur l'alternative de l'élevage durable. Je vous remercie. Je suis à votre disposition pour d'autres questions. Merci.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed, for your presentation. And I'm glad that you put your video on. Ubrejo, if you also you can put your video on so people can see you. That would be great. Yeah, my man, Ubre. Thank you so much. Yeah, so Mohammed, thank you for pointing out that the traditional livestock was there before. It's been taken over by the modern livestock, which has impacts on biodiversity, on human consumption. And for you, it's very important to keep the traditional knowledge, to maintain the traditional knowledge, and also to continue promoting the indigenous people, livestock, and knowledge. That's very, very clear. So people will throw you questions later, I'm sure. We're going to hear from the next speaker. Who is Claire Regina Ameyo Kenom. She's a key player in civil society in Togo. She's a human rights defender. She works particularly on economic, social, and cultural rights, with an emphasis on education, the right to food, and the land rights of communities and women. She has carried out consultation work in these areas of action. She has distinguished herself in action to defend and promote women's human rights, and as well as the fight against violence against women and girls. She is currently a holder of many positions, a program coordinator of NGOs called Floraison. She's also the Secretary General of the African Network for the Right to Food in Togo, coordinator of the Coordination Platform for Monitoring and Evaluation by Civil Society Organization in Togo, focal point of civil society for peace building and state building in Togo, CSPPS, and Secretary General of the National Civic Space and Development Effectiveness Platform. Madam Claire, you have the floor for your presentation. Thank you very much for joining. If you can open up your video so people can know you and see you while speaking, if the internet's allowed. Thank you so much. You have the floor.
Thank you, Colin, for this presentation. I'm here to speak about the life breathing as a human being in society. Women generally breathe life of animals to sustain life as a commonplace in the community. And they do this on top of their activities apart from agriculture, so that they can bring along women rights in the life doing. So this is to keep life in the community. So they bring animals, they have cattle, they have small animals, they have different animals, they use flies, fishes, they use plants. So they bring life in the community with the children all together, and bring along how to bring life in the past, in the present. They sustain animals, they sustain plants, they sustain flies in order to keep life in the community and grow with this livestock. This is done on a gender way of doing things, bringing people
Hi, Claire.
together. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we have a message from the interpreters asking if you could speak closer to the microphone so that we can hear you better.
Okay. Okay, it's okay now. Can
Is
they
that
hear
better,
me?
interpreters? Yes, yes, fantastic. Thank you so much, Claire. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So the women bring life. They castle, they have small fishes, they sustain life in the community with the basic needs of the life. They want to do this in order to keep life and work with the children as the community bringers of the society. And I say, they bring cattle, they bring other fishes, they bring fowls, they bring flyers, and they work with children around them so that they can keep the life on and bring the life sustainable in the community. But nowadays, that people are taking attack to the nature in the community. We see that people are cutting plants, people are destroying animals, people want to clear the land to have more space for agriculture, for industry and others. So the women are just in, let's say, in a danger because they do not find the way they can sustain their animals and their life and so on. And even the plants are being cut down because men need more land to continue their way of doing things. So there is a way to think about women challenges in bringing life in the communities and keeping life in the communities. So there is thinking about how to continue bringing life, culturally life, agricultural life, vegetable life, animal life, other plants life in the community, so that life can continue and bring along with others. So we think about how to sustain this land bringing of in order to reach the nature and keep people continue doing it. We can create banks for organisms, for animals, for cattle, for plants, and so on, so that women can keep on this and they can keep the seeds, they can keep the grains, they can sustain this through giving them to people in the communities. And this will bring children in order to sustain life in the community and work forward to continue keeping life as they are doing it. I think I have said the main views for you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Madam Claire, for your presentation. The way you describe the life in communities in harmony with the livestock, where women brings life into the communities with the livestock management, and also the challenge that women face in bringing those life. And nowadays in our communities, there are no more enough lands. Also, the vegetations or the forest or the biodiversity are cleared off. So those are the challenges of the livestock. Having that said, I'm sure people will ask more questions to understand better the situation in Togo. So having that said, I'll move on to Andrea and Kezia to present their cases. I don't know who will start from Andrea and Kezia. Maybe Andrea. Andrea, you have the floor. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, dear Kwame. Thanks a lot, everyone. It has been very interesting. I've learned a lot of reflections on my mind right now. I will talk in Spanish since we have the interpretation. I will only take a couple of minutes before passing the floor to Kezia. Bueno, vemos una relación muy compleja entre tierras, vidas comunales, conservación y cuidado de la biodiversidad y el aumento de formas insustentables de ganadería que han ido migrando indiscutiblemente desde unas formas que sirven a la comunidad a formas industriales cada vez más concentradas en la ganadería intensiva y en las granjas. Por esto, nosotros desde la campaña Stop Financing Factory Farming tenemos un interés también en comprender cómo estas formas de ganadería están realmente afectando la soberanía y la seguridad alimentaria a partir también del uso de tierras, de aguas, de alimentos que podrían usarse para las comunidades marginalizadas, empobrecidas, para los pueblos indígenas y para las mujeres, para alimentar el ganado. Entonces, hemos identificado que es un sistema bastante ineficiente que finalmente nos sirve para mejorar la soberanía, la seguridad alimentaria, que tiene también unos impactos de género bastante fuertes. Y ahí hay una configuración que se da en múltiples escalas, en las escalas nacionales, como nos han contado en Marruecos o en Nigeria, en el caso mío, en las Américas. Yo estoy en Colombia, por ejemplo, y acá también se expresan bastante estos distintos problemas, pero eso se viene configurando también por directrices internacionales y por apoyos internacionales, varios de ellos de los bancos públicos de desarrollo, que como nos va a contar Kezia en más detalle, han financiado la expansión de muchos de estos proyectos con algunos efectos locales bastante preocupantes. Entonces, también nuestra intención desde la campaña Stop Financing Factory Farming es exigirle a estos bancos, dejen de financiar un modelo que está concentrando tierras, que está concentrando aguas y que no está contribuyendo a alimentar ni a África ni a alimentar el mundo. Entonces, con esta pequeña introducción, Kesia le daría la palabra porque es ella quien nos va a hablar con más detalle de algunos casos que hemos identificado este año en África y qué podemos hacer para rastrearlos y para exigirle a los bancos dejen de financiar estos modelos, financien, por ejemplo, formas de ganadería sustentable como las que nos han mencionado con las comunidades pastoralistas, formas también de agroecología con una perspectiva de género. Aquí vemos un trabajo de agroecología muy interesante de AFSA, desde Mauritania también vemos que se conectó un compañero. Entonces, si hay tantas inquietudes con lo que están financiando los bancos, con lo que se está imponiendo en África, bueno, en este caso, y con la complicidad de estos bancos, ¿qué podemos hacer? Entonces le doy la palabra a mi compañera Kesia durante unos 5 o 6 minutos para que podamos luego tener un momento de compartir y de escuchar una pluralidad de voces. Muchas gracias, compañeros y compañeras.
Thank you very much, Andrea, and thank you very much, everyone, for being here today, and to the other speakers who have shared a lot of very interesting and important detail about the different contexts in their countries and the continent. As Andrea has said, I'd like to, excuse me. As Andrea has said, I will give a little bit more information, just speaking a few examples in the next few minutes about the projects that we are seeing coming from the international development banks into different countries in Africa, and some of the harms that we're seeing. And as the Stop Financing Factory Farming campaign, as a network, the ways that we would like to respond to these projects and support more sustainable alternatives. As Andrea has said, we are seeking to really understand more about the local contexts and the impacts that are happening in these very diverse places across the continent. And we are working to develop our knowledge and our relationships at the same time as working as a campaign and a coalition of members to resist the development bank support that is going to harmful industrial models of animal agriculture. Development banks, very quickly, are these international institutions that are spending public funds on development projects, agricultural development projects. Many of them are livestock projects. And a lot of the time we see that the benefits are not going to the communities in the areas are not being consulted or even being told about what is happening. And there are so many environmental and social harms, some of which have been already spoken about by these speakers already. A core part of my work with the Stop Financing Factory Farming campaign, which is not the most short name for saying, but it does explain what we are trying to do. A core part of my work is monitoring the disclosures, the new projects that are being advertised that the banks are considering, the loans that development banks are considering. And we look at these loans and we identify potential investments in industrial animal agriculture. And then we think about how to respond to these different loans. And I want to talk about 3 examples, 3 different projects today. And that give an example of the way that we work, the way that we are responding to projects, and the way that we are wanting to build the evidence and, advocate, campaign internationally to show what the harms are, and then also to talk about the sustainable alternatives. One example is the case of Zambeef, which is a very large, one of the largest agribusiness and food processing companies in Southern Africa. And it started in Zambia, but it now also operates in Ghana and Nigeria. And it started with beef, it started with cattle, but now it also includes pork, chicken, eggs, dairy, and animal feed as well. And it has been supported by the Zambian government, as well as being supported by one of the big development banks called the International Finance Corporation. And the International Finance Corporation is part of the World Bank as well. This project has been researched by one of our members, World Animal Protection, and they have led on conducting research to provide evidence of the different harms of the operations of Zambeef in a specific district, Mpongwe in Zambia in particular. And what we are seeing from their research is that the company has been connected to unfair trading practices. It has been linked to contaminated and unsafe meat, and it has been linked to anti-competitive behavior, which includes exacerbating poverty through controlling the prices that it sets, both for the cattle it buys from farmers and also the retail prices of the meat, the consumers. It's also connected to the other impacts that have been mentioned today, including displacing local people due to expanding and associated violence that comes from burning down houses to make room for the cows, and also communities having limited access to drinking water. This is a company that has been funded 2 times, at least, by the International Finance Corporation, and it also has been funded by the UK Development Bank. A second example, well, actually, I'll say quickly that the case of Zambeef is going to be hopefully published in a report coming from World Animal Protection and our campaign in the coming months. 2 other examples I want to talk about quickly, I've probably already spoken for too long, one case is Pearl Dairy in East Africa. So Pearl Dairy is a dairy processor based in Uganda, and it's expanding also into Kenya. And in April, earlier this year, we as a campaign wrote a letter to the International Finance Corporation in partnership with partners in East Africa to raise concerns with this loan as well. We saw some issues that may be there in biodiversity impacts, both in terms of the impact of grazing cows more intensively, as well as the loss of traditional species of cows as we see the move towards more genetically enhanced and single types of dairy cow. Also, the company has been connected to workers' rights issues and unfair contracts and pricing for the dairy farmers selling their milk to this company. So in this case, it's something that we have done a lot of times, is we raise concerns to the development banks, and we are beginning to build the evidence and build the relationship both with people in those contexts and also with the banks and the directors, the directors and governors of the development banks, to make the case that this is not the kind of thing they should be investing in. Finally, my example, that's the current example we are working on, one of them is a poultry operation, so not cattle, but also an industrial poultry operation that we have identified is maybe going to be invested in Mauritania. And we are currently connecting to organizations in Mauritania to build our relationships, to understand the agricultural context in what is a desert and arid area, and is very different to other contexts that we are more familiar with. And with those people we are connecting to, I'm looking to help the campaign explore together how we might want to respond and explain to the development banks, for instance, what kind of agriculture we would like to see, or organizations in Mauritania would like to see supported, if not this kind of intensive poultry and animal agriculture. And I would like to say welcome to Hudu and Mohammed Musa Sal, who are, I believe, have joined the call today. Thank you very much, and it's great to be in relationship with you now. So those are just some examples of what we're working on and the ways that we are identifying these projects from the development banks that are potentially or very clearly harmful animal agriculture projects. And we are seeking to build the evidence, both to communicate more clearly to communities that the harms these projects can have, where people are often not told about what is happening, and also to speak to the development banks and to governments to explain that this is not the kind of agricultural development that we want to see supported. And we want to continue, and something I'm hoping to continue from today and the campaign as a whole, is to build relationships with everybody, to build a deeper understanding of the different local contexts, and then understand how we can better support the traditional, the indigenous, the gender equal methods and practices that are much more sustainable and appropriate than developing the same kind of industrial systems that we see causing so much problem across the rest of the world, like in America and Europe. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrea and Kezia, for being practical, because those examples are worrisome, because if the World Bank through IFS is investing in factory farming, livestock in Togo, in Africa. In Africa, is dangerous for communities in Africa. At the same time, at climate change ground, the World Bank is hosting the Lost and Damaged Fund, but we know how the World Bank is destroying the community's livelihood by some of the development projects. So we need to be very cautious and see how we can tackle those livestock putting into Africa, in Zambia, in Eastern Africa, also Uganda and Tanzania. I think we have a lot to do. Having that said, I would like to thank once more all the speakers, Comrade Ubrejo, Dr. Mohamed, Madame Claire, and Andrea and Kezia, for all your presentation. Now, the floor is open for questions, comments. I've seen some questions already in the chats. Question to Ubrejo, and some other questions. I think the speakers can do justice to those questions. So we are looking for more questions from the floor. So thank you once again. Who wants to go first? So I have one, maybe for everyone. One question for every speakers. So looking at the traditional livestock that most of the African countries are doing, do you think it will be enough? It's a provoking question, actually. Do you think it will be enough to feed the people in Africa, or do you think it can be modernized? And what will be the alternative if you think that the governments in Africa want to promote the large-scale livestock? What will be your alternative? Thank you. It's a provoking question, actually. So I would like to hear from you all. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, comrade. I would like to respond to that. That question, as you said, is really a provoking question, and oftentimes I hear questions that come in that direction. Can Africa feed itself? It's a question mark that I see as an insult to Africa and Africans as a whole. Our people have labored enough to actually feed themselves and to feed others. So that traditional approach has always been the best. way to feed. The only challenge that is there is that our government has failed to harness, the opportunities that come from the traditional food system and the livestock production system. Because I did mention that families in the rural communities, almost every household rear fowls, and if you go to the local market, you see them, you see a lot of them in the market. So what these people need, they just need a little bit of encouragement to do more, to produce more. So we do not need really cooperation to take over that space to start breathing, because what we have seen so far, food that is produced by corporate entity is not really actually meant to feed the people, but they are for export for other reasons. They export them to produce other products, and then they bring back to us the finished product, whereas people who need these products to feed themselves are a bit starving. So what we should be talking about is how government can invest in rural agriculture by ensuring that rural facilities that support agriculture, that support livestock, local livestock production are in place. People need good roads to be able to transport some of these their products to the market. But because they don't have access to this market, some of these products, they experience post-harvest loss. And some of these products don't get to the market. So that is why they feel that people who are in the rural communities are unable to feed themselves and also feed the larger population. But those people, they are the engine room that actually feed a nation.
Thank you. Thank you, Ubrejo. Who want to go next? Dr. Mohammed, you want to chip in? You want to say something about the question? There is a question from Udu Sal. As environmentalists, what can we do to raise awareness among our governments, communities, donors, and private operators about the environmental and social impacts of sustainable agriculture and livelihood farming? What approaches will be adopted? So this is a question from
je peux m'intervenir.
Mohamed, please go ahead.
OK. Est-ce que vous pouvez me rappeler, me dire la question exacte pour ne pas être hors sujet? Quelle est la question exacte posée sur ce sujet?
Okay. Yes, so I was asking, looking at Africa as a whole, traditional livestock is what people practicing. So do you think that it will be enough to feed African people, or do you think there should be a large scale of livestock in Africa? A provoking question, actually.
Oui, absolument, oui. C'est une très bonne question. En réalité, si tu veux, pour combattre et lutter contre les impacts du réchauffement climatique, du changement climatique, il faut absolument changer de paradigme. Il faut que, c'est-à-dire le comportement doit changer. Il faut laisser la voiture et marcher à pied. Et il faut manger des bio et laisser. Il faut absolument changer de paradigme. Et donc, si on arrive à changer le paradigme, l'élevage traditionnel peut nous servir, il peut répondre aux besoins de la population. Mais ça ne va pas venir de l'heure au lendemain. Il faut absolument des années et des années. Mais il faut qu'on commence dès aujourd'hui. Il faut maintenir l'élevage traditionnel, essayer de le développer d'une façon moderne, mais qui soit loin de l'élevage extensif actuel. Et donc, il faut une autre approche. C'est une nouvelle approche de développement qu'on doit élaborer. On doit penser à une nouvelle approche pour que notre planète soit habitable. Sinon, si on continue comme ça, dans 50 ans, notre planète ne sera plus habitable. Donc, pour répondre à cette question provocative, entre guillemets, c'est absolument le changement de paradigme. Merci beaucoup. Et je vous souhaite bonne continuation parce que j'ai une autre réunion qui commence maintenant. Merci. Merci à tout le monde. Merci à l'équipe. Bon courage.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Yeah, Comrade Ubre also have to leave for another meeting. He's already 15 minutes late to the other meeting. So we have Kezia, Andrea, and Madame Claire to continue the discussion. So great. So Kezia, thank you so much for bringing those information to us. Looking back to what the IFS or the World Bank instrument is doing to the global South communities, actually looking into what's happening in Latin America, what's happening in Africa, and what's happening in Asia because of the development bank financing by IFC. What are the strategies are you proposing to us to fight back the project in Zambia, the project in East Africa, for instance? What strategy do you think we can implement as civil society organization, as Global Forest Coalition, as like-minded organization fighting factory farming?
Thank you. That is a very big question, and I do not think that I have all the answers. I think there are so many pieces to the puzzle, and the Stop Financing Factory Farming campaign is hoping that it can be one voice and one piece of this when so many different things need to happen. Specifically, what we are trying to do and the strategies we are following is to react to see the different loans that are being proposed by the development banks. And of course, that is only one part of the funding, one part of the support that is going to the development of this kind of unsustainable agriculture. But in our way, we are trying to react to these loans and to oppose them and to raise the concerns until it becomes very clear that there is an organized, big, international, collective voice that is not wanting these things to happen, and that is connected to the groups on the ground and the people who are doing the sustainable alternatives, the people who are the agroecological farmers, the communities who might be impacted. But that is a very big piece of work, and we are really at the beginning of building our network and building our voice. And that voice we also need to take from the reactive response to the individual loans. We need to build it in international spaces. We need to be attending not only the meetings of the development banks, but also the United Nations meetings, the Committee on Food Security. We need to be representing the part, the role that finance plays and how it is often not seen, and build the power in many different spaces to resist it. And I think my final comment would be that I'm thinking of it personally at the moment in terms of two things. One is that we need to tell new stories and to have strong voices telling the stories that respond to those the myths that are told by corporate agriculture at the moment, and that many funders believe about. We need to increase the use of fertilizer, we need to increase intensification. Like, those myths are very, people think of those as facts at the moment, but we need the new stories to take the place of that, to explain the alternatives are much better. And we also need to continue building evidence and communicating that evidence in effective ways, and whichever ways will speak to the different people that we are trying to persuade and convince. You know, there'll be different ways of communicating and different groups that can communicate to the governments or to the communities. So that is not something that this campaign or each individual organization can do alone, but the more we can work together, the more we can be effective.
Thank you. I see Andrea. Please go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Kwame and Kessia. I have a question actually for Madame Claire. I was meaning to ask her if she thinks that, because we know that there's some skepticism regarding the development banks, but I was wondering if you think that women in Africa could benefit somehow from having this money that's going towards the expansion of unsustainable livestock and factory farming for supporting women's production in Africa. So we'll be happy to hear you, Madame Claire.
Okay, thank you. It's important to ask this question about the women getting funds from banks to work in agriculture. The fact is that there is not enough information of the people about agriculture involvement in the way of doing things. There are women organizations working on farming, and there are women organizations working on family farming. And this family farming has already been used to feed people. But what is happening now is that some parts of the area is developed and other part is not developed. So there is a need to bring about a lot of people to work on family farming, to work on the farming, so that they can reach this fund from the banks. But you know, the banks, they do treat with the big organization, government organization. They do not go to the farming where people are. And the people working on family farming are in the areas where the information does not go. So there is a need to inform more people, to organize more people, and also to develop the countries. Because when there is no path, there is no roads to go to the farming, it is difficult to do this. And countries need to work on this so that this can be developed and work towards the people. People are growing numerous now in the countries, but they also need information, availability of services so that they can bring about what can be done as a family and people helping and sustaining people in the countries.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Claire. And the challenge faced by women, those challenges need to be fought. I think I'm sure Madam Claire has strategies on how to fight those challenges in Africa as well. If Madam Claire can come back on some strategies to overcome the challenges that women are now facing in terms of bringing life into the communities with integration with livestock. Madam Claire, if you can come back on those strategies to fight the challenges that women are facing, especially in Togo, and we can duplicate those strategies.
Yes. Women need to have some more strategies. We know that our place is where women are, in the farmyard, in the field. There is no good road to bring about the ideas, the information to work on. They need to come together. They need to work together. They need to share information. They need to share knowledge of farming as such. So women in the farm should have networks, association, bring together so that they can share information properly among themselves to raise up the ideas and work on this. So there is a need of women working together, moving together, and let's say producing together so that they can change the way they are doing things and they can have new knowledge about how to farm in their communities. And the other things also is farmers association, women farmers association should come together and work together and find ways to bring together their strategies and move forward. There is also the issue of the countries. The countries are not implementing, let's say, investing so much in farming in the countries. Women are there, some are in the back of the country, nobody comes to them, nobody share information on them. The countries should work and bring information together to them so that they can stay working hard for the development of the country. The countries need to invest and work on this so that things can move forward in the future.
Thank you so much. Networking is key. Information sharing is key. Togetherness, working together. Women should come together and share experiences. Thank you so much, Madam Claire. The floor is still open for 5 minutes. Is there any questions from the floor? If not, maybe I will just give the floor to Andrea for 1 or 2 minutes speech before we close the webinar. Andrea, do you have something to say?
I was looking if we had more questions in the chat box, maybe, but looks like we don't. So just wanted to thank everyone. I really learned a lot. It's great to hear different voices and to understand that through different strategies, we're all gonna align in building a just world for women, for indigenous people, for forests, for all living forms, basically. So I really hope that with these discussions, we could continue our networking, our alliance building. So if you want to have more information about the Stop Financing Factory campaign, please don't hesitate to reach us out. It could be myself, Kessia, through Kwame, because I know that you're closer to him. And yes, thanks a lot for your thoughts, for your reflection, and of course for what you do for defending life in the planet and for justice. I would really like to thank Kwame for his support in the moderation. He's Kwame the Great, as we say in GFC, a great moderator always, and also our great speakers. Thanks for being here. I know that these are very busy times, and also to the whole tech support team and the interpreters, thanks for being here. I don't know if maybe just for wrapping up, Kesia would like to say something. And thanks a lot for being also respectful of the timing that we had settled for this meeting.
I don't want to have the final word, so I want to hand it back to Kwame to end. So we'll just be passing it around. But thank you very much, everybody. And I'm, the Stop Financing Factory Farming campaign, me, Andrea, we are very keen to continue building relationships and getting to know everybody's work, everybody's context. And in the next year or so, we would love to be building more of a network and more of a program and a regional hub in Africa to be improving how we can respond to the development banks in the continent. So thank you very much, everybody. And Kwame, I'll give you the final, or Claire or anybody, the final word. It should not be me.
Yeah, so we give the floor to Madame Claire for her final words before we close. Madame Claire, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming to this webinar. I think this is something we need to share and know that there is a campaign, a project in some parts of Africa. And I think it will be necessary to work on other parts of Africa to have a scout look and see what is happening in order to share what is happening to those people, because you know that the development bank have a lot of programs in Africa and did not tell about it. So if next year you can try and find out in other parts of the Africa, West Africa, and see what are being done in Africa in order to develop agriculture or to stop agriculture developing, this will be a high way of doing things. Thank you a lot for sharing with us, and we hope that we'll come together again. Thanks and bye.
Thank you so much. Yeah, those are the keywords. Sharing, I think agroecology is better than factory farming. Family farming in Africa is the best. So we need to share more information on agroecology, on family farming, and share more information on the project that the development banks are financing in the Global South, and share those information with women, with young people, with civil society organizations, so that we can be well informed and we can build our strategy to counter the negative impacts of those projects in our continent, so that we have a better life in harmony with nature. Having that said, I would like to thank everyone for participating to this webinar. And next time, we will welcome you again to share your experiences, to share your information. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.